Welcome to today's session. Today is the third session of our webinar series. If this is the first time I'm seeing you, my name is Leonie Steenkamp. I head up the marketing department at STBB. And today we are exceptionally excited about our session because we will be talking about AI in the estate agents world and exactly what estate agents need to know to gear themselves, with AI. And Brent Mackay will be sharing with us today's session, and he will be going through exactly what you need to know. So Brent is our software developer and operations manager, and he has over 20 years experience in the industry and in the field. For 23, 30 years. 40 years, 50 years. You age well, Brent. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. I'm going to go through a few house rules. We'll also be posting them in the chat group for you to just have a look at. So first of all participants must please remain muted. We are quite a big group today, and we would like everyone to get the benefit of today's session. So please remain muted. We won't be sharing the presentation slides for today's session. However, we will be sharing the recording with you. So if you've missed also our previous sessions, for those that missed, the first session was regarding what is AI really, and then the second session was with our attorney experts on exactly whether AI can actually replace your attorney. So look, if you've missed those sessions, please look out for those recordings. You can also find them on our social channels. Then any questions that you've got, you're more than welcome to post them in the comments for us, and we will get to them at the end of the session. And then also lastly, just regarding the administrative queries, if you've got any issues regarding the recording or questions, you're more than welcome to email us at marketing1@stbb.co.za. Remember that we won't be issuing certificates for this session as it does not meet the CPD requirements. So this is just a general information session to help you with AI and the way forward. So without me handing over to Brent as yet, what I wanted to do was to just get some feedback from everyone, and I'll be posting a poll. And the question that we wanted to get some feedback on today is how long before you think AI will replace estate agents? 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, never? Okay, I see we're running. There's a few 1 year, 5 years, never. Okay, almost half the group have posted their comments, so I'm sure the other half is still just making sure they post the right answer. So I think 72% are at never. We will absolutely never replace estate agents. Great. Okay, so I'm going to count down in the next 5 seconds. Let's finish the poll off to see exactly. Great. So results are in, and 73% of our participants today are saying that estate agents will absolutely never be replaced. 3% is saying 1 year or within 1 year, and then 5 years, 13%, and 10 years, 10%. So I think that is a good show of exactly what everyone thinks regarding AI and the estate agent world. So without further ado, I am going to be handing over to Brent, who will be sharing today's session with you.
Thanks, Leonie. So before we get going, well, I hope I'm not going to rain on your parade about the never replacing estate agents, but we'll go through that in a moment. But just to note that very important is to remember that we're only doing a bit of a surface overview on these webinars. We're not actually going into everything in depth. So for instance, the overview on AI just is an understanding of what AI is, where it fits in, and so forth. And today's session as well, we're just looking at where estate agents can leverage AI. But if you feel that you would like to have more of a workshop with working on some of these tools to actually show you how to use them, just let us know in the comments, And if there's enough interest, we can probably set something like that up for a future webinar. But also, before you start using these tools, you need to be responsible with anything you use. So please come to the next webinar session as well, where we'll be dealing with the pitfalls of AI, so that you can actually understand. We've touched on a few things in the last two webinars. We'll touch on some stuff again today, but that the next session will look more in depth at what it is that you are playing with, and are you playing with fire or not. So just things to be aware of when you are using AI tools. And if I had to ask another poll, which I'm not going to do at this stage, of who is using AI, some of you may think you're not, but actually every single one of you are using AI. Whether it's in your car, whether it's in your phone, whether it's on your computer, AI is already in use with every single person that is connecting on electronic devices these days. So before I continue, I just want a quick recap on the previous sessions, just so that we all understand. I'm not sure if everyone had attended the previous sessions. So if I'm talking about certain technologies and certain terminology, what we're actually talking about. So AI is not a single thing. It's a collection of multiple different tools out there. So AI itself is just where machines have been programmed to try and replicate a human intelligent workflow choice, or path at least. So you will give it a task, one specific task, and it will perform that task either by a set of rules that it's been used to program the outcome, or via things like deep learning, where it will have looked at large volumes of data, looked for the key points that match the data together, and based on that give you an outcome. And with that, so there are many, many different types of AI tools. Some of them are used in collaboration with each other. So for instance, if we take a look at a self-driving car or a self-driving bus, as there are some in Europe now, it's not just one AI that is driving the bus. There's multiple AI tools being used. So object recognition, object avoidance, all sorts of different AI tools that are being used, location awareness, spatial awareness, all sorts of things like that, where it's been trained in multiple different facets, and each little component is operating that piece of the car or bus when it's driving. So not just a single AI that's being used. So if we look at that, something like that, where we say, wow, if it can drive a bus all around all on its own, surely it is as intelligent as a human. Well, not quite. So all AI is still what we call artificial narrow intelligence. So each AI tool performs only a single task. It doesn't do a whole bunch of things. It can only do one thing that it's been trained to do. You will have multiple AI tools that are being used in conjunction with each other, like I've just said. That could be used to replicate more of a general artificial intelligence, but it isn't actually general artificial intelligence, still narrow AI, because it still can only perform one task at a time. It also can't make up its own tasks. It has to be trained. It can't make up its own input unless it's trained to use the environment as input. So generally it's a case of it receives some input, it analyzes that input, generally based on machine learning or deep learning, where it's analyzed the data before, and then it matches up the appropriate output. So it's not creating or making up the output on its own. It's using what it's used in its deep learning to find the best match for the output. And those best matches, well, it can actually get to the point where AI is dangerous. There's a lot of talk around the dangers of AI and why we must have regulation and so forth. And it's good that all the governments of the world are starting to look at regulation and putting things in place to protect us with this space. But AI is a reality. It's not going anywhere. So we may as well embrace it, find the good parts of it and use that. The bad actors out there are already using it for their purposes. So if we don't embrace the good sides of it, it'll just be a harmful tool used against us. So as I said, the individual tools are refined for specific tasks. So as a ChatGPT, for instance, it's taken huge amounts of text input. It's analyzed those. It takes each word, each character, it matches up, it turns it into a vector, it analyzes it mathematically and finds a predicted best match in its reply or response to that particular input based on the data that it's been used to train. And if you put in multiple words, it will look at each word in correspondence to the other words that you've put in as your input, analyze those, find the mathematical representation of those collection of words, and then go and find the most likely response for those words. So it's quite just a mathematical process that goes through. It's not actually understanding. It's not human. It responds as if it was human, and it has certain human traits, which we'll actually go through some of the things in our Pitfalls of AI webinar on Thursday, but it's starting to do things that people never expected it would, because in essence, it's just something that's been taught on text, and some of the things it's able to do based on that are actually quite remarkable. Right, so that's just in essence what AI is, and we'll be looking at some of those tools today in the estate agency industry. But when we're looking at, will it actually replace, before we look at least, will it replace estate agents, just to recap about the attorney side, we also looked at, can it be used instead of my attorney? So the answer to that essentially was no. It can be used for attorneys to be a supporting tool for them to actually provide better information, better service to the clients, and potentially bring down the cost eventually of the service they provide to clients. But because the data that it provides is essentially what you put in is what you get out, the data that's been used to train on is very important as to how effective or accurate it is. The rules that it's had, its parameters and so forth, and its accuracies, although these things are improving daily, it's still not quite accurate. Also, it does not know who you are, where you are, anything else about you. It can't make assumptions because it doesn't got that information. It doesn't have that extra human touch, and the things like where our attorneys were saying, it's often what the clients don't say that's important more than what they do say. So if it doesn't know who you are, where you are, it can't tailor the answer to that. But with time, obviously things like location awareness will be built in, that information will be made available to AI, and then it can start providing better information. But once again, it'll probably still remain a supplement of information. There's also legislation. AI can't go to court and stand up in court. The number of things where only attorneys can do certain things. The legislation may change over time, but for now, AI can't replace it. Whether it was accurate and had human touch and all sorts of other emotions, it simply can't replace it. But then, more importantly, is will AI actually take over from estate agents? Now, I will first state I'm not an estate agent. Some of the information I'm giving here is based on the years of interaction with estate agents. So the estate agents out there will obviously understand these things a bit better, have more information. And if we are going to actually look at workshops, the first thing we will need to do is actually discuss with a group of estate agents exactly what their tasks are, because understanding the estate agent's tasks becomes imperative as to how exactly you're going to use things going forward. But basically, an estate agent needs to find prospective sellers. That's the important part. You can't sell anything if you haven't got stock. They need to advertise the seller to the market, or at least advise the seller the market value of the property. So how much is the property going to sell for? That might involve a bit of haggling. It's also about the best interest of the client, as well as the buyers that are coming along. Marketing the property effectively. So once you've got the property, you know it's all its details, making sure that it's marketed effectively, but also ethically. Qualifying prospective buyers. So can these people actually afford the things they're looking at? There's no point everyone going through a whole long journey and the buyers can't actually fulfill the obligation. Facilitating communication between buyers and sellers, or prospective buyers at least. Expressing proactive buyers all the facts concerning the property, which are reasonable or which are reasonably within his or her personal knowledge. Now, that's a key thing actually to just remember. Estate agents often go out, they'll inspect the property, and they may come across certain things about that property that they then pass on to the prospective buyers. So that just keep that in mind for later on when we're discussing whether estate agents will be replaced. Negotiating the transaction and completing the offer to purchase. So they take both the seller and the buyer's interest into consideration. It's not just a case of buyer can afford this, seller can wants this, match them up and off you go. And then advising the buyer in respect of finance, for the property price. So that's referring them to the mortgage originators if required, assisting with the bond side of things, discussing or arranging bridging finance and all those type of things should it be required. Then there's liaising with the transferring attorneys to actually get the property registered in the deeds office. And a key thing there is the fidelity fund certificate. So we know that without a fidelity fund certificate, you can't actually take commission and sell properties. So as it stands currently from a legislative point of view, AI can't do that. But when we look at that aspect, AI doesn't have to sell the property per se. There could be someone behind the scene who's got a fidelity fund certificate that uses all the AI to perform all the other tasks. So AI won't be the one making the revenue. It'll be performing all the tasks of an agent while the principal just takes all the reward. So that is technically possible. As to the rest of the tasks, well, we'll discuss them in a moment. And then, of course, keeping accounting records, having trust accounts and those type of things as well that are required. So if we look at that as an overview, a lot of these things are administrative or communicative in nature. And AI can currently perform all of these tasks. So when we look at any of these particular tasks, it's not going to be a case of one AI tool that does everything, but there are AI tools that can do aspects of all of these. So if we add a whole bunch of tools together, essentially we come up with a tool that can perform all of these tasks. But right now, as we speak, there is no tool that does all that. So is it a case of, will it take over the estate agent's job right now? Definitely not. Will it in future? Well, we unpack that in a few minutes. So just looking at that as well, if you look at will AI replace estate agents? Well, the sales side, the admin side, the communication side, it is possible that down the line, AI can do those things. Before AI is actually implemented, so just to recap a bit of the AI stuff here again, AI is just the tool that's been created to analyze data and give the most likely response to the input. If you don't give the right input, you don't get any output, or don't get the right output. So what happens is people build additional software tools around the AI to take the correct input, use the correct output for different purposes. So there'll be people that work with software programs that create a program that interacts with the AI and does a certain thing. So, and also training the AI on certain models of data so it's got the correct data for the correct responses. So although some of these tools exist, none of them really exist that have been specifically tailored for replacing estate agents. And why would that happen? Well, someone needs to be able to make money out of it. Nothing's created for free. Everything has always got a sales aspect to it, a financial aspect to it. That's one of the chief places where humans differ from computers, is we have financial needs. We are attached to economies and so forth. And everything we do has to be done for some form of reward, generally financial reward. So if there is no way to make money, or at least substantial amounts of money, by building something that replaces an estate agent, no one will build it. And generally the way AI works is it's about bringing small costs for tasks and then collectively having huge volume of tasks to bring that money in. So if it's going to have huge volume of tasks, they will eventually build it. So if we're looking at when will they build it going forward, you have to look at how many transactions occur where they'll be able to take a small piece of money and then apply that across the collective whole to make huge amounts of money. And it's also quite localized and specific. So there are laws and regulations and different types of data sets. So some of the tools we'll be speaking about today, they've actually been trained for European or US-based data. So while it's possible that those tools can be used in South Africa, not all of them have access to South African data. So the first hurdle that AI will have to overcome is actually being trained on industry-specific data for the South African region. And a lot of those tools and the actors behind them will start over time building those connections to that data so that they can sell and leverage out to our community as well. But currently, not all of it has been done. And it may never be done simply because there might be no financial reason to do so. Will they have a tool that can interact and be used for an estate agent to supplement what they do in sales, admin, communication? Definitely. We see those tools in existence already. That'll be a case of an estate agent becoming better at what they do by using these tools, not being replaced. So if we look at that trend, and if we look at computers as a whole, computers have been around for a long time, for more than 20 years. The internet's been around, and it's been since day one posed as a threat for replacing salespeople. If you can buy direct online, why would you need a salesperson? And the initial fear was there. In the beginning, it did start to make changes in the marketplace. It did actually replace a few jobs, but over time, it actually started creating far more jobs than it ever replaced. And AI will probably do the same. It's going to shift things around to make people more efficient, but as soon as they become more efficient, new requirements will come about that they'll have to do. So people start expecting different tasks from them, where in the past you'd go, I can't expect the person to do all of that. Once they've got all the tools, suddenly they can do all of that. The competition starts to do it. Through the competition doing it, it means it becomes expected that everyone does it. So it's going to shift and change the industry, but not replace, in my mind at least, not replace estate agents. Not in the short term, and probably not for a very long time, if ever. So those people who said never, I to a degree agree with you, but it all depends on whether artificial general intelligence ever comes about. Because at that point, yes, it can. And the big thing that, well, the last point I list there is trust. So a property transaction, for most people, is one of the biggest transactions they will ever engage in. And trust becomes a massive thing when you're engaging in something like that. So trusting a computer right now is a non-entity. People don't want to trust a computer to do these things. They want the human touch. So it's a very important thing to have a estate agent involved. But with time, as we've seen with all sorts of other things, as things go along and computers start doing things and they start having better responses, and people start saying, wow, this thing is far more accurate and far more reliable and far more honest, and whatever the case may be, over time it may shift. It may be a case that people prefer to trust the computer rather than an actual human. But that's all just a maybe. It hasn't happened as yet, and there's no indication it's going to happen anytime soon. It all just depends on how well the emotional side, or the AI emotion training is dealt with, and whether that ever materializes or not. So will it replace estate agents? I don't think so. Right, so how can AI be used in the industry? So we're going to cover a couple of things, and then after we've gone through these, I'm going to look at a potential use case. So I'm not going to go into any in-depth coverage on any of the items here. You can make notes of them. These are not all the tools. If you actually go and search, you'll find there are thousands of AI tools out there, some which apply. So if you look at, for instance, sales, sales is an industry that is global. So you'll find a lot of tools in the sales industry. So real estate has got a sales component to it. You can potentially apply some of those tools to your industry. We're just going to touch or list a few of these items as we're going along. So this is definitely not a complete list. And none of these items have in any way sponsored or paid for any of this. So we're not promoting, it's just listing them that they do exist. Right, so AI can do in-depth data analysis. It's very good at that. It can look at multiple property data points. It can evaluate them against themselves. So it can look at things like predicting actual marketability of stock, actual property valuations, not just what the price of the property should be, but what a competitive value is. So what can you actually sell it at? So that's one thing where estate agents and experience on this side normally comes in, because they apply their experience and their knowledge to, well, the tools that you use say that the property is valued at X, but you're never going to sell it at that. We need to market it at Y. So that is one big point, but AI is very good at looking at all that data. If it has access to all the correct data, it can do quite a good job of working out a competitive market value. And also, when you look at the potential properties out there, it can actually analyze all the data, if it has access to all the data, and give you quite a good feedback of which properties will likely sell at which points. So just predicting the sales, who potentially, based on historical sales, who will sell, how likely they will be to sell, based on market trends, based on what's happening in the news, all different factors like that that influence sales. It can do quite a good job at looking at all the mass data points, looking for a correlation between them and finding those values and those statistics on marketability, on potential sales points, etc. So looking at data, and there are a lot of tools out there, things like Google's BigQuery is one of them, where you can actually take your own data, plug it into those tools and look for those correlations. But that requires having access to all the data. So if you've got access and plug in data to all the sales historically, you can get a much better view. If you've only got access to your own sales historically, it will be a much closer or narrower view. But also, when we look at those traits, it does look at things like country, city, neighborhood, etc. So you can actually narrow it down for in this particular space that I'm selling in, whichever neighborhood that might be, what is the stock that's more likely to be moved once I have it, and also which ones are potential to go and approach about selling. So those tools are in existence, not readily available as yet as feeding the data to the industry. It's something that you can leverage to actually create the data for you. And that'll more likely be from an agency level where they'll have to create those type of tools. It's not something that an individual estate agent can easily do at this point, but a lot of information on all of these tools actually going forward. A lot of information is available, and people like Google actually create free courses on some of these AI tools, on how to use them, how to set them up. Some of them are quite high level, so you need to have a bit of an IT background to go through them. But it's not rocket science, not complete rocket science. If you just take the time and effort to go sit through the free online course, train yourself up, you have a much better chance of interacting with some of these tools we're going to go through. Right, so promoting stock and self. So the key thing there is also self. Selling is not just a case of selling the houses that you've got, but that trust element is a big thing too. If I need to sell a house, I want to go to someone I know that I can trust, but I might never have sold a house before. So how do I know? I have to go based on what everyone else trusts. And that's where self-marketing comes in. So you punch yourself to the industry, you punch yourself to the prospective buyers and sellers at the same time as to who I am, how I fit in, and why I'm the right person to go to. And that's something that actually is done by the industry in large, but AI can be used to actually tailor those and improve those as well. So when I go through the video creation later on, just bear in mind, it doesn't have to always be about the stock, about the house that or the property that's being sold. It can actually be about creating content to promote yourself as well. And promoting yourself doesn't have to be in a single video. It can be in, for instance, a social media channel that you have constant recurring information being pushed out to create a follower base. That follower base is all about trusting you or seeing you as a trusted individual in the industry, in that space, or in that neighborhood for that matter. So these tools that we're talking about, even though some of them are things like, oh, I don't want to become a social media influencer, well, those tools can apply to you as well, because if you become essentially a real estate influencer in your area, you are become the go-to person. So looking at tools that those people use is also quite handy. And obviously content creation. So content creation is an important thing. So it comes down to who is the best with the gab when it comes to selling. So historically, it's always been like that. Oh, that guy can sell ice to an Eskimo in winter. Those type of comments, that's a great salesperson. So how you phrase things often dictates how the people that wish to pick up on that are going to be influenced. So using these AI tools to improve your copy is quite an important thing. I know a lot of agents are already doing this. So they're using tools like ChatGPT to actually create the little write-up that you're going to place on each property. So it does a very good job of that. It does it in a very nice, eloquent manner. And even if your English skills are not fantastic, that tool sorts it all out for you. But it's also not just about writing copy. So writing copy is one part of it. Who are you marketing? Are you marketing to people in different regions? So if I'm marketing and I'm marketing to an international audience, because I have people that are buying from international locations, and I use the data analysis to figure out where my likely candidates are coming from, I can actually create content and list items in the language that they will be able to understand and read. I can't speak that language, but AI does a perfect job of translating that for me. So I'll create the tool, use one of these tools to create the content, creates the copy, use that copy all over the show, translate that copy for that matter, and use it in all my other media going forward as well. So some of the content creation tools there are just things like listcopy.ai, WriteHomes, Writer, ChatGPT, Realty Ninja, etc. So none of these are completely free. Some of them you'll find little free pieces here and there for a certain number of trial attempts, just to see if it works for you or not. Thereafter, they start to bill. They're not frightfully expensive, but it's an ongoing expense. It's not a buy it once and use it forever scenario. And very few AI tools are like that, especially because they are changing every single day and improving. Right, so presenting stock in a different light. So if you have a particular space that you are selling, a property that may not be in its best light, it's not in its the best position, at that point, so your seller, it's up to your buyer to actually have some intuition as to what they could see that house becoming, or that commercial property, or whatever that space may be. So if you present it to them in a better fashion of what it could be rather than what it currently is, they can also be more likely to purchase that property. So there are tools that you can use to take your photographs of the property and then remodel them. So some of these are things like Virtual House Flip, Reimagine Home, IA Crea, Kool-Aid, Dreamhouse AI, Interior AI. And then there's tools like Let's Get Floor Plan. So if you are selling something that has been built from the ground up, and you've got only a floor plan and maybe an artist mock-up, you can take the floor plan image in 2D, send it into a program like Get Floor Plan. It'll actually create a full 3D mock-up for you with the 360 views, with virtual tours set up and everything. You can set up and change the content inside the property, remodel, add furniture, move things around, make it look as you think it would be best portrayed. So the ability to actually not worry about whether the buyer has got some creative thinking and actually just present them with what it could really be is quite a handy thing as well. And then you got things like mobile and the Hyro AI. So some of these tools, like I say, were for remodeling of homes, taking, so mobile, for instance, you can take a photograph of a property, a static photograph. It'll take it in and it'll analyze it, and it'll give you potential alternative ways to display that same image. So not just a case of applying a filter to it, but actually analyzing it and adjusting it slowly. And some of these tools also, you can remove things out of the image. So you've taken a photograph and, gosh, when you finish, you return back to the office and you see there's, the dustbin's in main focus of this photo. You didn't realize. You can simply remove the dustbin out of the photo. So a lot of these tools can be used to alter or edit that image, but to portray not a made up property that you're trying to sell, but just to present that same property in a better light with reality behind it. So you're not going to edit the home to this fantastic thing. People think they're going to purchase the fantastic thing. They show up and they see the poor home in the poor condition. You would obviously market and show that this is the reality, but this is what it could be. So those tools you can use for that type of analysis or presentation. And then there's social media. So on the social media front, a lot can be done there to promote things, yourself, your properties, etc. We'll look at that in a moment as well. And then promotional videos. So we're talking about not just creating text to promote yourself, but actually videos. So improving your sales pitches. So tailoring your sales pitch before you phone a client to try and get them to give you the property to market. You can go into these products like ChatGPT, Realty Ninja, etc. Get it to give you a sales pitch based on the type of property, the area, other factors that you know are salient factors for the property, and factors that are salient factors for yourself, why it should come to you. Put that all into the system and let it actually spit out a customized sales pitch on that particular property. So when you're phoning, it's not just a case of, hi, I'm so-and-so from this place. Are you interested in selling your house? It's more customized, targeted, and it sounds really jacked up, like it's been created by a whole team of professionals for you. And the same with promotional videos. You can use it to create the copy behind the promotional video, then also to set up the video for you, which we'll look at in a moment as well. Right, so the next, what AI tools can be used for the industry for enhanced real estate marketing. So we're looking at the data and lead management. So when leads come in, not all of these tools are available, but it's possible at this point. They can be integrated with all your input points. So for your social media channels, your email inboxes, your phone, for instance, even, and they can take information, create leads out of that, put it into your CRM systems, and manage the entire thing for you. So it also answers questions as well. So when it comes to using AI for chatbots, they can actually, if you co-train them or cross-train them, they can do a lot more for you as well. So area analysis, the AI can look at stats if it has access to all the stats. So once again, South Africa is not great with these type of things. Places like America, Canada, those type of countries have a lot more of their statistics published in data sources that you can access with AI, have it read in and analyze. This will in time obviously change in the third world as well. Once these tools have infiltrated properly in all the other markets, they will eventually come back to us as the last place to try and sell them. It'll just take a little bit longer before all the things we see being adopted across the globe become adopted here as well. So that's just something to bear in mind as well, is South Africa traditionally is slightly behind on the IT curve. So things that happen, they happen a little bit later here, which helps because we can actually use that to learn and predict, look at what's happening in the rest of the world, predict what's going to happen when it finally hits our home shores. So analyzing things like crime stats, natural disaster probabilities, especially things like at the moment with the heavy rains in the Western Cape, things like flooding, which areas are more likely to have those type of things. So that's not just a case of knowing about it so that you can discuss it with potential buyers, but also discuss with the sellers as well. How will you address those things when those questions come up? So that's another thing that experience brings. An experienced agent in an area knows all these stats already because they've been around for a long time. But AI helps people come into an area, analyze the data, have all the information at hand straight away without living in that area for years and years and knowing all the ins and outs. It gives you the ins and outs. So transportation, parking, local school stats, entertainment, recreation, dining options, etc. So not just a case of analyzing these, but you can actually overlay this information on top of your properties that you're trying to sell with things like augmented reality. So augmented reality is just a tool that takes your video feed that you're looking at, and it places real world objects inside that feed, which is essentially a made up space. So the video is made up, it's not real, it's artificial, it's a copy of the real. And then it puts the real things in there. So if I'm standing, and there are tools that do this already, if I'm standing at a house and I take my phone, hold it up and I move it around, it can show me the location of the schools that are nearby, the filling stations that are nearby, all those type of things. So it just makes access to information a lot better and a lot easier. And we see a lot of these things being adopted already in tools like Google Maps, for instance, where at any point you can say, where are the filling stations near to me? And it gives you a detailed list of all the filling stations near you, how far away, and if navigate you there should you need. So those types of tools can be used for the real estate industry as well, and they are being used. There are some people that actually embed those type of things into their websites and so forth. Better photographs. So taking your photographs to present the property to prospective buyers is a very important thing. It's been done for a long time. Often we hire expensive photographers to do it because the guy, if it's a big property with a large price tag on it, a big commission behind it, it's maybe worthwhile getting a professional photographer in, takes fantastic photos, presents it at his best light. That type of thing is starting to disappear because you can take very simple tools these days and they can outperform some of the fantastic tools from the past, as well as some of the fantastic minds from the past. And photography is one of the places where this actually comes in. So there are products like Deep Image, which is an image analysis tool that can actually look at the photograph, analyze it, look for things that should be removed, remove them, improve the product, etc. There's also AI embedded in cameras. So some of the cameras that you get these days have got AI auto embedded. And in fact, some of the smartphones that you have of the top line smartphones have AI embedded on their photography side. So if you take a CLR or a SLR camera from about 5-6 years ago, and you compare it to your cell phone camera today, you'll probably find that your point and shoot photos are better on the cell phone than it was from those single lens cameras 5-6 years ago. And that's a massive thing, because there's no way those devices can take better photographs, but it's using the AI to leverage the information that's coming in, change it and adapt it so that it can be presented in its best possible format. So much so that I don't take my Canon SLR with me when I go on vacation. I take my smartphone, because I get far better photographs on a regular repeat basis with that device than I do with the actual camera. So it's not just a case of image enhancements. So these tools, AI tools, aren't always online. Some of them, like the embedded tools inside the camera, have been made small enough for devices that are now powerful enough to run them on their own. So it's actually embedded into the device itself. So on cameras, it's some of the high end, for instance, on some of the Samsung top end Galaxy cameras or phones, you will get some features, for the AI features, they will look at the image being presented, and it will suggest the best shot. So it actually gives a little yellow dot on the screen, and you line up the focus point of your camera to that yellow dot, and you take the photograph, and that'll be a better photograph than you may have taken if you weren't a trained photographer. So when it comes to photography, there's also things like law of thirds and lining up things like that. It takes that all into account for you, and it just analyzes the environment, says, point your camera here for a better shot, and you take a better shot. So those things considered, just using those tools, you already can get far better images than potentially you would be getting from a professional photographer 5-6 years ago. And then also what you're going to do with those photos. So better video as well. Same story applies, analyzing the video. You can actually live edit videos using AI. You can insert things live into videos using AI. You can stitch photos together to become videos. You can stitch photographs together to become a 360 space that you can look around for virtual tours and so forth as well. So AI presents all those opportunities as well. And then there are some tools that have been created, albeit not for our market, but probably can and possibly can be used for our market, that are full AI suites. So it's not a single product that does a single thing. So it's not like a ChatGPT that can take in text and respond with text. So using that to create better copy for yourself to place online or wherever you're placing it. They have a part that does that, a part that helps with the image creation, a part that helps with the video creation, a part that helps with CRM, a part that helps with all sorts of different pieces. So they have a number of AI tools that they sell as a suite of products. And some of those are EpicQ AI and Jasper AI, but there are others out there as well. They unfortunately are not free. So why use video for marketing? Now, we just to all the things we've spoken about, one of the key places where video can actually be the better option. I'll use that in a use case I'll go through in a moment, but just to analyze video itself. So these are things that you might actually already know, but we'll just go through it anyway. So just make sure everyone's on the same page before I get to my use case. So video can find more potential buyers than a static photo can. And that's because for almost half of the, well, actually almost half of the buyers, at around 40-something% of buyers start their search for property on the internet. So if you're engaging at that point, you're getting something that actually attracts them more than the rest of the stuff out there, you've got a far better chance of catching that buyer when you place your little fishing rod into the big pond out there. So direct traffic to your listing via social media. So if people are going to property websites to search, well, that's fine and well. You have your listing sitting there, but if they're not searching there, the mere fact that they have gone to some property websites, their different social media tools know about that, and they can promote certain things to them to direct traffic. So if I have a video that comes up in the social feed for a prospective buyer, they might click on that video and through that take it to the actual listing for that property on the property website. And creating buzz on social platforms, creating buzz not just about the properties themselves that you're marketing, but also about you and your agency. If there's enough buzz about that, it creates that relationship, which creates that trust we spoke about earlier. Providing buyers with comprehensive information in short and simple to digest fashion. So if you look at a whole string of text that you have to read through to figure out oh, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, etc. What does this entail? What does that entail? There's a price attached to it. What's the quality of the place like? What's the current state of the place like? How big are the rooms, etc. I have to go out there and see the place before I can understand some of these aspects. So AI can bring in things like virtual tours, where it takes all the images and videos, maps them together into a virtual representation of that space, of that home that you're marketing. And people click through and walk through some of the tools, even to the point where you can put on a VR headset and literally walk through the place as if you were there. These tools have been in existence for a while. The uptake is a bit slow because the tools out there to actually view them are limited, but that will grow in time as well, especially with Apple and looking into its VR side of things as well for year releases, they say. So neighborhood virtual tours as well. So not just a virtual tour of a property, but also the neighborhood itself. And some of these things, it doesn't have to be a full virtual tour where you are letting them walk around a neighborhood and see things, click through or have an overview of where the different places to eat are, where the schools are, etc., etc. But it could just be an overview flyover or flyby that is incorporated with the video for your property. And the AI tools can take a whole bunch of different snippets of video or photo and add them together, stitch them to become a full overview video. It can also create instant visual connection with a video. So a video plays in the background, your mind picks it up slowly while you're looking at something else, and it catches your eye because it's moving far more than a static photo does. And if it's a short and simple, to the point, well-tailored video, it will create the connection straight away, attract the attention, and the person's more likely to click on and interact with it. Obviously, it'll attract tech-savvy millennials and Gen Z, and they are becoming, so that in Europe and America, they are already higher purchasing power people. On our side, they're becoming the higher purchasing power people, so fairly rapid as well. And also reduce the number of in-person viewings. If I can, and this is something that 2020 actually brought about quite a bit. So I see a lot of these tools already in use because of that. You are nowhere near where you need to view the property and you can't get there for whatever reason, but you need to look at what the property looks like. So those virtual tours are very handy for that type of thing, especially for foreign buyers who are looking to invest. You don't necessarily want to go all the way there to look at 10, 20, 30 different properties. You might do virtual tours of a whole bunch of them, and then you have 2 or 3 you're looking at when you finally arrive. If ever, some people actually buy straight from what they see online. Provide memorable reminders for them to take home to their families. So even if it's a case that they've gone to a show house, they've looked at something there, they've seen and they liked what they see, when they get home, they can forget. So having a link to a video, especially something like a virtual tour where you can actually go and look at the whole thing again whenever you want, is quite handy. And then, like I said, the introduction video is also quite key. Don't just market the property, market yourself, and repeat marketing for yourself on social platforms. So if we look at AI video creation, there are many video creation and editing tools out there. Heaps and heaps of them. This is a very small piece of the list. If you go and Google, you will see there are probably 100 different tools that you can find straight off the bat. So these are just some of the ones that are commonly used more in the property space, not just for video editing or creation as a whole. Obviously, these are designed more at taking static photos and creating videos from them, or taking existing video feeds and enhancing and improving them. It's not going to make up stuff, because in the property space, it doesn't help you create something that's not real to try and sell. So that will reduce the trust. Once you have no trust, people aren't going to buy from you. So it's important to leverage tools not that create, so DALL-E and those type of products out there, there's no point using them because they make up new things that don't exist. So these are just to edit or create video from photographic static photos. So not making up its own thing from scratch. So Centro Pro, FlexClip, Pictory, DeepBrain, Designs AI, Lumen 5, Synthesis IO, Rephrase AI, Raw Shorts, Clear Cloud, and then Synthesia. Synthesia is also quite a, I'll just touch on this one a bit more. So this product actually creates virtual actors for you. So if you don't want to be the person standing in front of the property talking about it, you're not happy with the way you look or sound or whatever the case may be, In the past, you'd hire a professional actor to do those type of things for you. Obviously, you would only do that for high value properties. But with AI tools doing that at a fraction of the cost, it becomes affordable to do it across the board on all the properties, not just the high value ones. So essentially, a product like Synthesia you will take a text script that you give it. It will create the video from that. You will pick one of the one of the AI actors. So they're not real people that actually exist. It's stuff that's been made up by AI that looks like a real human and sounds like a real human. And it speaks and tells the story of the script that you're giving it. So it's quite a handy thing to use as well. It also does additional video creation out of fixed images and so forth as well. And then, so where to next? So if we just look, I'm going to go through a use case overview of what you could actually do with some of these tools we've spoken about. But essentially, there's many, many tools available. Some of them have free trials. So the thing you need to do is go and play around. Play around, take some of these things I've mentioned, click on them, play with them, see what they do, use a free trial. It doesn't work for you, move to the next one until you find those few that fit for you. Because once you find a few that fit, you can start leveraging those to actually have a huge impact. And then there's also a thing called fine-tune training. So you get a tool like ChatGPT or whichever tool you may get. Just bear in mind that ChatGPT is not just one version of it. There are multiple versions that have been trained on bigger sets of text, and they respond back slightly slower with the bigger text bar. I don't know if there's still an audio problem out there. Are people able to hear? All right.
Hi, Brent. We just lost you
I'll
there
carry
for a
on.
minute.
Okay.
So maybe just repeat that last sentence.
Right, about the fine tuning. Right, so with things like ChatGPT, there are a number of tools out, a number of parts of it. So it's not just ChatGPT as a whole. There are little pieces of ChatGPT. So there's like a Da Vinci module that is trained on more sets of data, so it can respond slightly slower but more accurate. Whereas some of the other modules that they have been trained on smaller sets of data, so it responds far faster but not as accurate. So you'll take one of those. There are around 4 or 5 of those modules that can be customized or fine-tuned. You will take one of those modules and then fine-tune it to your data set so they can respond more likely or more like you and with information that you want to respond to. So fine-tuning is not a simple thing. It's not just, oh, well, I'll plug in a whole bunch of my brochures and so forth and emails, and suddenly it's going to start sounding like me and respond to my clients with the correct knowledge. It is quite a technical thing to do. So you need to involve people who know what they're doing on that side, but it is very possible to take one of those tools, fine-tune it with your data set, and then have those tools interact with things like your social media, your emails, and even your telephone. So you can have essentially, if you properly take one of these, a number of these tools, not just one, fine-tune them nicely, you can have an AI assistant that answers your phone for you, responds to everything the person listens to the person on the side, responds correctly to them in the fashion that you want them to respond, with the information you want them to respond with. So accurate, because you need to test your fine-tuned module to make sure it is going to respond accurately. And then the same on all your social media. It can take social media chats that come in, it can reply to them, it can organize them and highlight them to you so you know what's going on. You don't have to be overwhelmed by high volume of traffic coming in. You can actually take a look at some of the more important things that is highlighted for you and have it answer and handle the rest of them. And the same with emails. It could answer queries that come in on emails, simple queries, just answers. Other things that categorizes and highlights to you, so you can actually deal with those yourself. And essentially, because it's an AI or computer tool, it's available 24/7. Never sleeps, it's always there. So we'll look at some of this stuff in the next session as well about our pitfalls of AI. We're looking at both pros and cons, not just the cons of AI, so do tune in for that. Then just a quick use case overview. So let's say I take a property. I want to sell this property, or I want to find a property to sell. So the first thing I do is I take a huge amount of data. I analyze that data and I advertise to the people who are more likely to be the buyers or sellers in my market space. So if I create an advert that promotes me, the agent, and a couple of properties that are in that area, I then want to target those and advertise those to people that are more likely to buy or more likely to sell, depending on what it is I'm trying to do. So if it's more likely to sell, I can look at the stats just to analyze where are my sellers really coming from. So let's say male or female in the price in the earning potential range of X to Y, with the age range from X to Y, etc., living in this area are more likely to sell in the next year. All right, based on whatever's going on in that industry at the time. I then want to advertise just to those people in that region. So it might be that these people are not just in my neighborhood. It might, for selling, sure, to be more neighborhood specific, but for buying, it could be global. So you'd look at the global stats to see where do these buyers really come from, and then you would market directly to them. So in the past, you don't really know who they are, and none of the information tools out there actually give you the information of who they are, but they know. So the Facebooks of the world, the Instagrams of the world, etc., they know who these people are. They know how old they are. They know roughly how much they earn, where they work, all these different things. So if I say I want to advertise to people that are potentially looking at property and they're in this age range and they are in this gender range or whatever the case may be, working in more or less these industries, more or less from these areas, send the marketing out. It will appear on the social media feeds for those people. So it doesn't appear on every social media, for every social feed for anyone. It's targeted specifically for those people. They then click on it, it takes them to your listing for that particular property, or engages more with them. So they'll see your name, your video coming up in their feed. So when it comes time to sell, that they normally sell by whoever they're thinking of at that time. So the whole thing of making sure that they understand your brand, understand who you are and where you fit in that area, and market you as the number one go-to person for that area. That's where a lot of these things can come in. So you will then take something like a ChatGPT or one of the other tools we mentioned earlier, get your copy written, take some photographs, use the copy plus those photographs to create a little video intro for that property. You can even use something like Synthesia to actually have a AI actor present that video. But in the end, you have a fairly professional video that's been created, and with very minimal amount of time, you just simply type the details of the property, have the AI spit out the copy for you, copy paste the copy into one of the video editing tools, upload some images, hit the button, and out comes a nice, fairly decent video. And if you can also use templates that you like as well if you want to look a certain way, and you can then market those videos to those audiences that have been identified by the AI as the target audience. So that's just a quick overview of where it can be used. But to really delve into it, we have to have more of a workshop than a chat. So I hope the information we've had today is sufficient to at least get you clicking around looking. But please do come to the next session so you can understand, should you be clicking and looking? And if you are, where and what to look out for. And then thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Brent. We do have just a few questions. First question, sorry, let me just get it in front of me, was regarding the, sorry, let me just open this up, was from Estelle regarding direct marketing, if we use some of those methods and direct it to specific persons. But I do think this relates to social media, in my view, that they would have probably already subscribed to the fact that they're on those platforms. So you are
no, not necessarily. So what you do with that is you will actually pay someone like a Google or a Instagram or so forth for advertising. You will not just say, I want to advertise this thing on 1,000 imprints. It must just put them out there for 1,000 people to view and then bill me accordingly. You will actually specify to say people in the age range this to this that are in this gender, working in these industries that are from these locations. I want you to market it to them. And then you can even go further and say anyone who's then in that category has also looked at property in the last while. looked at either property prices, because that might indicate that they're looking to sell, or looked at properties on other listing pages because they might be looking to buy. So what it then does, it does not tell you who those people are, but it will put your video on their feed. It just appears. So you may have seen that already. If you start looking for something, you're looking to buy a new kettle, and you Google a whole bunch of kettles, and you're on Google, when you go onto Instagram, suddenly there's kettles coming up in your Instagram feed. So that's where it uses AI for that type of thing. So you tell it which segment of the market to target, and it will then target that segment of the market for you. It doesn't tell you who the people are, it just targets the segment for you. And then you would obviously need to use AI analysis tools to understand your market properly, so you know you're targeting the correct segment. But yes, and essentially you can create those videos, and you've got this nice little video you're going to put on, and you just hit the button and say, translate to German, because a lot of German people are buying in my area. Translate to Portuguese, or for Brazil and Portugal. And then go and market those to segments of people in those areas. So in their Instagram feed, there's a little video popping up with the property, a little video popping up promoting yourself, and it's all in their language, easy to understand. So it's more likely they're going to click on it than if it was in a foreign language. And then also, the key thing to remember is, if you don't use these tools, your opposition will. And at some point, they're going to outmaneuver you in the industry. So it's stuff that you do need to look at, not necessarily intensely right now, but do start playing around.
Thank you. Yeah. So the next question that we have is just regarding a question: is there a social media tool available to manage different? Is it AI tool available to manage different social media channels?
Yes, there are multiple of them. There's products like Social Bee, for instance, that you can actually let it create content for you and auto post the content to various channels for you. So without you even doing anything. And in fact, they predict that around 2025 to 2030, somewhere in between that space, around 90% of all social media posts will have been done by AI. So that's another thing. If that's going to be the reality, we need to start using AI to identify what these AI posts are, so we can actually get rid of the fog and see clearer the message we want to see. But yes, so I hope that answered the question, Yanni.
Yes, I think there's Hootsuite as well, that you would also be able to
that's
use.
That's for scheduling and posting. It's not going to create content for you. But when it comes to just scheduling and posting, there's loads of tools. That's not necessarily AI, yeah. That's just simple tools. But in the AI space, there are tools that can create content and auto schedule for you, or just you prompt it for the content and then tell it to share across. So you give it some prompts and it creates the content based on that. You can check it and tell it, yes, release that, or just let it go on its own and release.
Yes, I think also just from my end, we've used Jasper AI that Brent has mentioned as well as a paid tool, and there you've got like certain workflows that it gives you in terms of blog posts, things like that, and also creates the content for you. But that's yeah, depending on what you would like to do there, and social media planning. So I think those are all the questions that I saw. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us in today's session. I see there is quite a bit of a request on the workshops, and from our side, we will be getting back to you on exactly what it is we will and can present. Regarding the notes, I know there was also quite a bit of a request for the notes of today's session, and we will compile them for you in one document so that you can have a handy document to refer to today's session. It won't be the presentation as such, but we can definitely share that with you. The recording will also be made available. And then please remember to join us for Thursday session, Thursday session, where we will be discussing the pitfalls of AI. So that's very important, I think, just as a complete follow through of the entire AI series, just to understand exactly, the ins and outs of everything in terms of AI and how it affects your daily lives. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in today's session. We hope you had an amazing time, and then we will all see you on Thursday.
Indeed. Thank you.